thank you for all attending. It's wonderful to see so many here in attendance, and aren't we grateful that we can actually turn up at a meeting and attend after doing Zoom meetings and all these sort of things all year. We're actually in the room together, which is a fabulous thing. So, well done, Anastasia. Well, she kept the same. She kept telling us that. I'd like to recognise the guests we have with us in the room here this morning. We have our patron, Howard Hawks. Welcome, Howard. Thank you for attending. We have our PAA delegate in Susie Rose. So, Susie, thank you. This is your second year coming up here. We're unsure whether you'd be allowed across the border, but thankfully everything has relaxed, and we welcome your attendance here, and we thank you for your support over the last 12 months. We've got Charlie Brook, who's our other representative on the PAA board. Welcome, Charlie. Charlie's also a past president of the association, and Christine, who's also a past president of the association. And I'd also like to welcome Kent Wells, who's our national umpiring director. So welcome to Red. Firstly, I call for apologies, so are there any apologies to record?
Matt Hardy.
Certainly Matt Hardy. Now Matt has been in Tasmania and it was just a little bit too far to come back just for the meeting, so we'll record Matt as an apology.
Charlie Haddad from Negro Club.
Charlie Haddad from Negro Club. Any other apologies we should record? If not, we'll move on. Confirm that we have 31 votes in the room, so I think that's a really good attendance, so thank you everybody. We'll move on to the minutes of the previous AGM, which have been distributed as part of your packs. Not my intention to read through the minutes. I'll take it as read have been distributed, so the minutes need to be recorded as a true track record of our previous AGM, so if anybody who wishes to make an amendment or alteration, this is the opportunity. If there's no amendments to the minutes, can I ask that somebody move who was at that meeting move to a true and correct record of that meeting? We've got I'm sorry, the total So, everybody agrees that they are true and correct record? Keep your hand up, please. Show of confidence, thank you. Anything that's arising from those minutes that you wish to have addressed at this meeting that won't be addressed or possible to be addressed in general business? If not, we'll move on. I'll give my President's report for the 2020 season. Firstly, I'd like to thank Joe for being here to stream this meeting for those who are unable to attend and the pubs are unable to attend. Joe is live streaming this meeting, so I think that's one thing that COVID's taught us is the ability to work electronically and to be inclusive for those people who aren't able to be here and to observe our meetings. So thank you, Joe, and thank you for providing that service to us. This year has been an interesting year. I think if I'd been able to look forward, I may not have been quite so keen to stick my hand up for the last AGM. But we were served with what we got. And the year started so well with the practices for the state teams at Toowoomba and Carnival and Tara, 2 weeks after the national, and it all started to go south. So it was quite hard work then to try and understand what our follow-up season would look like. So I'd really like to thank those clubs that stood up during COVID and made this season what it is. So particularly to the far north zone, and some committed clubs in the southeast and the Lake Arc. So congratulations to the Tara Club, the Tansy Club, Toowoomba and Kirkland clubs in the southeast. And in the north, the Pyramid, Nebo, Bowen, Lower Burdick and far north zone, who made possible this last season. I think the lessons that we've learned from 2020 is that players enjoy the camaraderie of the made-up sides which competed at Tansy, and that we need more opportunities for our senior players to start their young horses without the pressure of regular carnivals. I think that was very evident at the carnivals we had, and there's a lot of horses started this last season, and I think that was great for our sport. I think the 2021 playing year will be an opportunity to rebuild the numbers in our sport with both new and returning players, and I'll encourage all players to reach out and invite players old and new to attend a practice and reignite their passion for our sport. Many other sports are experiencing growth and participation as people look for things to do. Don't let trial-cross be a secret. I note that clubs have been organising practices over the summer, and I encourage you to continue to do it in the new year. Reach out to those players, invite them to a practice that might be thinking about it. We've got to get those people back in the fold. My prediction is that 2021 will be a big year for our sport, with many players having had a break and keen to return to the playing field. And the anecdotal evidence from other sports is that people are keen to get out and do stuff, so I think it will be a great year. We have a number of opportunities to showcase our sport with Barrascock, Qpa Challenge and the Club Championships in Wondowan this next year being the highlights. The live streaming provided in 2020 by Joe McNally proved to be popular, and I encourage clubs to talk to Joe about the opportunities that are provided to sponsors for the wider exposure that can offer you. This can be a positive way to promote our sport, not only to the true believers who are unable to attend, but to a whole new audience. The Elton Downs Club have presented to the Management Committee on the venue for the 2021 State Challenge, and they are to be commended for their enthusiasm to ensure that this carnival will grow on the success of the 2019 State Challenge. I encourage you to talk to your club members to convey the message that while this carnival will provide the very best highlights we have to offer, it's also an opportunity for those in the lower grades to play in a competitive team with players from other clubs. It's a great opportunity. On the national front, our PAA councillors have continued to meet on the issues of the new constitution to enable a transition to a company limited by guarantee as required by Sport Australia, with a resolution expected soon. Discussions on the 2021 fees with special regard to the insurance component are taking place, with options for fees with or without personal accident insurance being considered. Our Management Committee will be supporting the retention of personal accident insurance as part of our fees in 2021. The numbers show that it is value for money. It does offer something to our sport, and the expense per player, once you break the fees down, is actually, I think it works out at $130 per player. The alternative to take the alternative insurance is around $1,500 for the same value cover. We think, as a Management Committee, that it's be retained in our sport, and that's the way that we'll be recommending that Queensland supports paying fees. Next week we should be able to determine what the paying fees are that the AA will be turning them down very shortly. Can I thank the PAA for being very transparent with regards to the consideration of these fees, congratulate on the consultation that's taken place today, and the level of information that they've provided to us. I think it's more than we've ever received as a state before. The opportunity for the Council to meet via Zoom has enabled rigorous discussion to be held with between the states on a regular basis, and I think that's something that we've done differently this year, but it's enabled all the states to discuss Holocraus issues more often. The Interstate Calendar for 2021 is a little broad, with New South Wales choosing not to participate at Barrascock. As a state, we've reached out to New Zealand to compete, subject to the opening of the borders, with a favourable conditional response. We're waiting to hear back on which competition they may bring team. In the interim, we've called for nominations for Queensland players and starting to receive responses from the database. I'd encourage you to reach out to your players and encourage them to put their names forward. because there's a possibility in some grades that we may have more than one team compete. If we don't receive teams from other states, we'll be playing two Queensland teams against each other. It's an opportunity for players to place a representative holocross at the highest level and encourage them to nominate for that competition. The Albury Junior Classic has not been confirmed as yet as being an interstate competition. We're still waiting to hear from the New South Wales Association, but I'm not sure that it will actually go ahead as an interstate competition, and we'll advise the clubs once we actually get confirmation of that. I was a little disappointed to note that New South Wales, one of the issues of not attending Barristock was that it's only 1 week different from the Albury competition, and I would note that we set our dates 12 months in advance. I don't see why there should be a conflict. We're quite open and transparent with our dates. To resolve this issue, the issue that the representative or major carnivals passion across state borders, the management committee has recommended that a motion be moved at the next AGM of the council that all carnival dates with interstate competition or interstate interest be set at the council AGM in the year prior, i.e. in March 2021 we would set the 2022 dates. That any conflicts can be resolved in a transparent manner with all states present. I think until we actually move to that point, we will continue to have this argument about dates clashing. For example, this year our state challenge back in Narrabri. We've got a conflict potentially between Barristock and Albury. We can't continue to have that. We need our major competitions where people will travel in the same or play in the same teams. We need that to be open to everybody, and it just needs to work. I've written to Craig Zielinski, who's the new president of New Zealand Holocross, and we've agreed that it's not possible to send a new junior to New Zealand this year. Their season starts now and runs through till March, and obviously the New Zealand borders will be closed or if we have to spend 2 weeks in quarantine in New Zealand, it's not realistic. We're open to seeing what will happen later in the year. We'll be happy to host the New Zealand Junior in Queensland if the borders open up. With regards to the Qpa Cup, this was our year to go to New Zealand, and obviously that's not realistic at this point. We will continue to liaise with New Zealand to host the Qpa Cup in Queensland in 2022, and we'll be looking for a host, and I hope the Barwon Club will be in a position to put their hand up again, because they've done a lot of work to lead up to that carnival, and they've been congratulated for that, and we'll be looking for that opportunity again. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Nanny, our Treasurer, who steps down today. I'd like to thank her for her years of diligent administration to ensure that we're financially compliant and successful. As the second in command, she's provided great support and advice to the presidents she's worked with. The management committee will miss her very much, with her full and frank opinions and ability to cut to the point with political issues to discuss. Whoever takes on this role will benefit from the streamlining of the procedures and the templates and processes that Penny has implemented. You can expect great things from the holocross field, and you all that extra time to practice. On a single line, we acknowledge the climate of Paul McGrath did actually occupy now for many years. It's undoubtedly the most demanding and time-consuming role in holocross, with the little things from playing very well to your holding the rules for. Paul's dedication and time served are to be commended, and I sincerely hope that this is merely a pause in his contribution to the sport and will take up the challenge with progression. To our management committee members, thank you for your commitment during a difficult year. I commend you for continuing your involvement in our sports administration. Our learning curve on running Zoom meetings has provided opportunities for efficiencies in the future and to be more nimble in responses to emerging issues that are sensitive. My last thanks for this year is to Steph, who has learned on the road with a lot of help and team. Not much from me. She's an independent thinker, self-starter, and above all pragmatic in the approach to providing services to our players and management committee as we require. So thank you, Steph. Thank you. item on the agenda is the treasurer's report, so there you go. Sorry, I'll leave my report for a minute. Those opposed?
You have a little pretty pack, you'll find your financial statements in there. And there's also another handout that says comments to the accounts. I'll run through them in a second. I'll just start with what it was saying. 2020, whilst we've been quiet on the field, we've been pretty busy on the field. And there's been some interesting challenges faced as treasurer. The 2020 financial statements show a profit of $56,000, a result that I'll analyse shortly for you. I track the result of our organisation, or the financial result of our organisation, to the diligence shown in regards to our financial activity. I have lost track of the number of times I've been asked in the management committee room, is there room in the budget for this? And then they all have a chuckle and throw a bit of, what a thing. However, that question is one that can't be asked enough. It shows that the processes are in place and good fiscal policies and protocols are being adhered to. Last year I highlighted that we were facing a changing environment with regards to our funding. Well, the financial environment has changed. And I note that the happenings over the last 12 months, we're still no closer to knowing where we're headed with regards to our funding program for the Department of Sport and Rec. Put this in perspective for you people. Our current funding is due to expire in June 2021. That's, 7 months away. We don't know what's going to happen after that, and neither does the government. We're waiting for direction and guidance, and we are watching this space very closely. Slightly lighter topic. Qpa's commitment to ensuring that members have development opportunities. Last year we took advantage of an opportunity from the PAA to buy some practice quality rackets. They're $110 plus postage available from the office, and there's still a few available. They are a fantastic addition for a Blue Bandage kit or a coaching kit. After the year we've had, I feel that Qpa's strong financial position has been maintained. Moving forward, it's going to take the continued commitment of the management committee to sustain this. Our diversified investments have been the Russell Street office rental, the house rental at Magic Stone, our cattle enterprise, our savings account, and our share portfolio for Strong. Combined with opportunities that we've taken advantage of through stimulus packages and government subsidies, our sporting organisation has a strong financial future. The dry conditions have reduced the number of stock we hold in our cattle operation. However, as in past years, we have reserved some of these sales to ensure we have a future plan and some cash flow. Negotiations with Optus, and I can tear my hair out here, they have continued. Optus had a phone tower on Magic Stone, and I will touch on those issues shortly. Car farming offered a sponsorship for the season we didn't have, and car farming has been willing to roll that sponsorship forward to next year. Alright, let's grab your financial statements and your notes, and let's have a little flip through. If anyone's got any questions as we go through, please feel free to send them my way. If you go over to the first page, it looks a bit like this fella. He's got a livestock trading statement on him. I'll start with saying that the Qpa financial year runs October through to September. The sales of our cattle for the year, we sold 181 head for $158,000. the table with your cattle sales over the last 10 years, and we've just slowly been adding to this table each year after year. It's pretty simple maths. If the average after the 10 years is 96,000, that means that over 10 years we've had $960,000 injected into our organisation through the cattle operation. It's a resource that just nobody, there's no other local association in Australia that has access to that. And I can't say it enough, it is just so important to us. This year we were forced to sell cows, calves, weaners, pretty much everything. Matrix stone and big stock. It was, you remember 12 months ago? We're kind of a little bit better now, but not much. 12 months ago we were dry. And the Cattle Committee were forced to make a decision, and they basically de-stocked Matrix stone. Our house, we have a house, if you go over the page, I don't have too much else to say about that page. If you go over the page, we've got a rental property or a rental house at Maddystone. It's been rented all year. I'll touch on this one. On this page, it's the Optus Tower rent. I took over this job 4 years ago, and one of the first things I started to do was negotiate with Optus because our initial lease with Optus was up. 4 years later, I still don't have a signed lease from Optus. I've got an agreement in principle, but we're still waiting. Optus provide us with about 10 grand a year. And I touched on it last year that we were in negotiation with Optus. We've spent about $1,200 in legal fees to get to this point. And to say that Optus has frustrated me would be an understatement. Optus still wouldn't sign a lease even though we wouldn't come to any party of the negotiation until the current lease ran out. I then asked them to pack their tower up and leave. The management committee probably took a big deep breath when I told them that. Long story short, we got Optus's attention. We have agreed to a new lease. We're going to start it at 10 grand a year. We're going to increase it by a fixed rate of 3%. The first bit of the lease is going to go for 5 years. Then they've got an option to review it. Optus, we've had trouble getting money out of them, and Steph was also involved in this process, not in her current term, but actually in her term before, when she came in and did some temp work for us. So, on top of that, I've asked Optus to pay their lease in advance. So I'm expecting in the very near future a little injection from Optus of about $53,000. Now that needs to be spread over the next 5 years, but at least we have our money up front, no busted. Away we go. Further on that page, there's a bit of compensation income. That's been there for a few years. We've got an agreement with one of the gas companies to come in and do some gas exploration, and they give us a bit of money every year. The notable expense on this page is what I touched on a minute ago with regards to the fodder and livestock expense. As you can see there, it cost us a small fortune, and to the tune of nearly 30 grand for the Qpa Cattle through the door last year, or for the period that this covers. So that's from October last year through to September. Now, notably, we were buying feed up until March 2020. So a fair bit of profit from our cattle operation has gone back into ensuring that we didn't kill our stock and we maintained them appropriately. Alright, we go over to our next page. We deal with the office in Russell Street. For those of you who don't know, we have this building in Russell Street, and basically the Qpa office uses half of it and we rent the other half out. We don't really have to do too much for it. It's handled through a real estate agent, and as you can see there at the end of the year, it has over 4 rentals. So it's a nice little investment. If we go over the page, we look at our follow trucks activity for the year. A couple of things to note on this page. Our club affiliation fees are steady and have been for a number of years. That amount is actually $600 including GST from 39 clubs. The next one down you'll see is our government grants. And this year the amount is back a little bit. It's back a little bit because the amount shown in this set of financial statements only covers 9 months of the year, not 12 months. A little story with our government grant. We normally get funding in 2 instalments or every 6 months. We were a bit unsure how it was going to work this year. We did our acquittal in January, and we got sent some paperwork in March, and we got 75,000 plus GST hit the bank account, and we went, here, we've got some money again. Away we go. And then we all know that COVID come along, and that just put an end to everything. The government offered plenty of opportunities for you to apply for a grant, and they gave us lots of information. We couldn't, as a state organisation, apply for any of those grants. Those grants have been pushed back to club levels. No worries. We were due to do a bit of a rude shock. We were due to do an acquittal in July. I thought we might have got away with not doing it until September, but we had to do it in July. Before we'd even submitted our acquittal, the government gave us another 75,000. We sort of, Steph and I looked at each other and went, wow, it's pretty easy. Long story short, that 75,000, the next one, sorry, they gave us 67,000. The next one, that 67,000 we've put aside, it actually covers from October through to June, so it covers the next 9 months, so the second half of this funding cycle. So we've actually reserved it onto the balance sheet, and you'll see that later on when we get down to it. So what's shown here in the government grants is actually the only bit that covers up till September 2020. Not sure where we go next. We held a coaching event. The coaching director cost was for a course we took out to Charleville. Russell and Paul organised that. The junior athlete development. We were fortunate enough to be able to send a junior to New Zealand before COVID hit. Their costs are involved in there to give them a little bit to help with their plane ticket. We held an event at Tansy this year. For the youth committee, or the youth of that sport. Those costs are involved in there. Our PAA club levy, it's gone up from $76 a club to $103 a club, so there's a little bit of an increase there. And I'll take note that the senior coaching expenses at $4,500 is, that's 9 clubs that have taken up the opportunity to be reimbursed for their coaching costs this year. And that is a program, I'm really sure it's sort of out of my hands to do next year's budget, but it's up to your management committee, and I'm sure that will be something if the funding allows for it, that may continue. Moving on to the Umpire section, and I'll just digress for a second and talk about honorariums that are paid to a few of our members. Myself as treasurer, Mike as president, and our chief umpire will receive a small amount of cash every month to assist us with our costs in doing this job. Over the day, and that honorarium is set by the management committee, excluding a vote from any of us. The management, there was good debate about the levels of amounts paid. Over the last few years, they've all been on different varying amounts. This year we decided to put everyone on the same amount. And the biggest increase went to our chief umpire. And that's why there is an increase in the umpire allowance this year. The umpire development costs there are actually, we held a course in September 2019. We didn't quite have the costs agreed before we closed off the month, so those costs are covered and captured there. If we flick over to the next page, we'll talk about our merchandise and promotional items. We were due to go to Ballarat for nationals, so we have a bit of a run on merchandise sales. So I hope everyone's put them in the cupboard, going to be able to use them again. And if you haven't, well, guess what? We'll probably get you some more merchandise and get by again. I'll note here that there's no advertising income this year. In the past, we've had an agreement with Rural Weekly, who give us a discount on printing our calendars and our Behind the Goalpost magazine. Unfortunately, Rural Weekly's had a bit of financial so therefore there's no advertising. Our merchandise items, we sell very close to cost. We don't try and make money here. We prefer to see our items out showing off our sport, and therefore this section doesn't really run at a profit for us. We flick over the page and we look at our event organisation. Little activity on this page because we've had little events this year. The biggest item I'll note here is that we've had 21,000 paid to and allocated to the national titles. This was money paid to Victoria before the Nationals were cancelled, and we had to pay this money. It was part of our commitment for nominations, etc. We, as a management committee, have made the decision to leave the money with Victoria rather than ask them to give it back to us. It's not lost in any way, shape or form. It's there as a credit for us. I was asked yesterday about why I've left this in here, given that we will get future use of it. I was a bit quick, I've already used it in the acquittal, so I've had to leave it in here. So that amount's in there, but note that we won't have to pay our nomination fees next time we go to the Victorian Nationals. Unfortunately, we paid for our uniforms for the Nationals, and they had a year stamp on the shirts, so we couldn't use them for a future event. So I considered the cost of them gone, and those shirts were distributed.
And there's still some left in the office.
Yeah, there's still some in the office, but most of them have been distributed out.
And here is the shirt.
Yep. All right, moving over, next page, we look at our investments. If anyone's got any significant investments, you'll know that your investments they're not giving you as big a return this year, so I don't think there's anything to really surprise on that page. Going over to page 8, talking about admin and management expense, and we've got this is the account coming out for me, so just bear with me while we do this. On this page, our organisation employs Steph. She's engaged as an administrator and an employee. When COVID hit, there was a couple of stimulus packages that were offered to the organisation, and we qualified for both of them. The first one being JobKeeper, which was where you got a subsidy for the payment of your wages, and we qualified for JobKeeper 1, and we received the full amount for the 13 weeks of JobKeeper. We didn't qualify for JobKeeper 2, unfortunately, because the government gave us that money. So we're going to have another go in January and see if we qualify for the second half. The next item that's there is a cash flow boost. Now, because we withhold tax out of Steph's wages, the government would subsidise that up to the tune of 50 grand. Well, we don't hold that much out of Steph's wages because we're a bit tight and we don't pay that much. So we got 20 grand out of that. I'll also touch on the top line that says executive allowance foregone, and I'll take the opportunity here to thank Mike. He has offered an honorarium, and he has donated his honorarium for the entire year back. Given that Polycross activity slowed down in March and April, I also took the opportunity to donate my allowance back as there's little activity going on. There is a bookkeeping expense line there, and just purely for transparency purposes, that's paid to the firm that I operate. I had been left with the job of doing stuff that wasn't really part of the treasurer's role. Over the last couple of months, in preparation for my departure, we have moved that job back to Steph and back into the office. So next year that line should be reduced, and the expense will be found through the payment of a bit more wages. That's about it on that page. If we go to the last page, to administration, we were in the process prior to COVID hitting of moving our office to a fully cloud-based system, which was going to allow us to work from home or work remotely. COVID just meant that we did that a little bit more swiftly, and we fine-tuned the tweaks. That cost us a little bit in internet costs going up. We also had a little bit more equipment that we had to buy, so our depreciation costs have gone up. If I quickly touch on a couple other items, in the 2019 year with the World Cup, we did a bit of advertising, so obviously it was up in 19, but it's back to usual levels this year. We produced fewer newsletters because we were doing a bit less on the field, so that cost has come back. There's some legal expenses there which are attributed to Optus, and the database, we had to pay a bit more registration fees because we had a little minor tweak done with the database that affected just Queensland. So that was cut off. If we look at then, we add all those sections together, we end up with a profit of 56,000. It's down a little bit on prior years, but given the year that we've had and the unusual circumstances, it's probably not a bad result. If we click over to your balance sheet, you'll see that the second line there is your investment account. It's grown by 75,000 excluding the interest that we've had for the year with it. This was a thought bubble from Wayne Austin many years ago to try and future-proof some funding opportunity or take advantage of some funding that we had to make sure that if we ever lost our government funding, we actually could continue to survive and we weren't just relying on it. So that account's bounced along quite nicely. The management committee sets a target initially of 25,000. Extra's gone in because we've had extra cattle sales. Down at the bottom, you'll see there's an income in advance line. That's the deferral of the income, the sport and rec income that we had. So overall, our organisation is showing a value of 1.7 million. So I think we're in a really good position. So I just asked, has anyone got any questions that they want to shoot my way with regards to those financial statements? Christine? Quiet. Alright. So I would like to move that those financial statements be adopted as a true and correct record of our organisation. Can I get a second up for that? Belinda? Thank you. Alright, sorry, I haven't quite finished yet, people. A couple more issues to address. A few years ago, we moved to paying our membership via the online database. It was a challenge and interesting. From a treasurer's perspective, we had some trouble getting reports to start with and making sure that we were getting our money from the PAA, and we went through a process there and we did all of that. That's what took our attention and focus. One thing that slipped under the radar, and I'll take responsibility for this, is that when a player transfers from an interstate or from another state, so an interstate player transfer, there's a function on the database, and there's a small fee on the database. But what that fee doesn't capture is actually the Queensland portion of the player fee. I brought this to the attention of the management committee, and as a committee we've decided that there is no reason why that Queensland component should be paid. So moving forward, there's still no functionality to capture that in the database. It will have to be a manual system. We've worked on developing one of them. Just for full transparency, this year, this season that we've had, a full senior member for the Queensland Polo Cross would cost you $175. So that's what we've forgone. I do apologise. We are rectifying and moving that and fixing that moving forward. Another item, and hopefully you're all going to like me after this, is that the management committee decided, or we had a discussion about our club affiliation fees. And so our club affiliation fees are set 12 months in advance. Given that we didn't know what was going to happen for the year that's just been, the Management Committee is offering a 50% reduction to clubs for their affiliation fee for the 2021 year. So that's the fee you've just paid. There will be a process. Clubs are asked to apply to the QPA office. You'll be issued with a form. Please complete the form. It's not too drastic. You just give me your details so that we can organise to give you $300 back. That's about it for me, people. I'll take this opportunity to say I'm not going to have another lap at this job just yet. I've been your treasurer for 4 years. It's been a challenging and interesting and reasonably enjoyable role and a wonderful experience. Thank you for entrusting me with this job. And I'll take the opportunity to wish you all a Merry Christmas. And I'll move my report forward. Can we get a second up for that? Sure. Thanks.
Thank you, Penny. And the treasurer of the report has completed the details of what Penny provided us. You can understand that all this enormous. Her time as treasurer, the assets of the QPA have increased by $400,000. I think our net assets now are over $1.7 million. This is the best funded Holocross Association in the world. I now call on Steph Cochran to give her administration.
Well, 2020, cliche, I know, but what a year. It started off in full swing for Ballarat Nationals, then a few weeks shy overhit, which put all our state players, coaches, managers and connections into disarray. While the dust was settling, I found the opportunity to attack the severely overdue filing and make use of our storage shed. This has made the back of the office much tidier and user-friendly, while also creating some sort of office manual which is still under construction as the year goes on. The lockdown also gave us a chance to get up to speed with governance. Thank you, Jared, for your assistance with this. We were fortunate enough to have the office, to set the office computer and email system to a fully remote cloud, which has been very convenient during this unusual period. It was very handy to have remote access to keep members informed with the ever-changing restrictions. We were fortunate enough to host a QPA Level 1 coaching presentation in Charlotte. Thank you, Russell Davison and Paul McGrath, for attending the trip with Russell. A special mention to our State Director of Umpiring, Paul McGrath, for hosting a number of umpiring Zooms with the help of events which were well supported by our playing members. It's great to see that some clubs were able to kick off and get some practices once the restrictions eased. Far North Queensland were very actively practicing and gaining a lot of interest with new members. They are to be commended on their efforts. While in the south, we were able to get 4 weekends to wrap up our very unusual season, with members attending as far away as Tambo. Thanks to Mike for proactively leading this activity. The Queensland Youth Development event held at Tansy was a huge success. To all the coaches, parents and supporters of this event, we can't thank you enough. This was Matt Hardy's portfolio and what a success it is. We hope to provide more of these opportunities in 2021. The Qpa Cattle Committee, led by Darryl O'Leary. Where do I start? This committee is an integral part of our organisation. The longer I sit in this role, the more I can appreciate the efforts and contributions they play in our association. We are very fortunate to have this resource in our state. As mentioned previously in the Treasurer's report, the Cattle Committee has contributed to the healthy financial position that we find ourselves in. Last, but certainly not least, Ken. No words I say here today can thank you enough for your contribution The year draws to a close. I take this opportunity to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Hopefully it's got to. I move my report for adoption.
So the next item on the agenda is the report of auditors, but just take a moment, stepped in to the role just before the AGM last year, and she's a very strong administrator in her office and providing some independent thinking and something that we've been lacking in the admin office for a long time. So I hope you all get on well with it, but she's certainly a great help to the management committee and able to do things independently without instruction. So it's a great help to this organisation, and she's stepping up and doing her role very well. Reappointment of auditors. So we need a motion that our current auditors, which is Peter Muller from Super Audit Specialists, be reappointed. Do that, please? Oh, here we go. Press that. Just scared up. You can't always wait to see you.
I found it.
Second that, please. Okay, all in favour? Carried. Cattle Committee report now. Darryl is here. Welcome, Darryl. So Darryl leads our Cattle Committee, and they really are responsible for the success of the financial part of this organisation. So welcome, Darryl. It's over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Anyway, as we all know, the last 12 months have been very, very trying for us all. But to start off, I'd like to thank Gerard O'Sullivan, John Mullins, Shane O'Sullivan, Murray Sturgis, and those fellas, because when Doug and I were both crook, wouldn't we both just go down in one go and went out there, and the cattle just, we didn't go there for nearly 4 weeks. I went out there in November or end of October. I couldn't believe it. So anyway, I rushed in, we got some hay and got on a roll. And then we got a letter of a grain bin off a neighbour of mine to feed the cattle. And so we would get Molly had to come down every time, so we got another machine to get out of the front end loaded with the 1 ton bag from the best and get all that organised. So it was a big effort. And Jared had Murray and I bought all the hay up from the south for us, so we allocated some to QPA, and we took them into Jared's place, put them in his truck, and he carted them out every couple of days and dropped them off, and without that it just wouldn't have happened. Then we made a decision that in January said we just can't keep going because we were up to nearly, you've seen the feed bill were up to nearly 30 grand, it was looking no end in sight, so we took the call and sold. It was the right decision at the time. Rain coming February, as we all know, but we took the decision. We just couldn't keep going the rate it was. But people getting organised to feed, and it's an 80k round trip for me to drive out and back, and you just couldn't do it every second day. So we made that decision. I thought we sold pretty well. We kept 21 of the little ones, about 6 weeks old. We weaned them. When we sold, we took them out to Sturgis there, we fed them out to Murray, we took them back to Maggiestown, and we made a call on this week. We sold this week in dollars and come back at $500 a head. Pretty big effort. And then during the year, we were down to no cattle. I've been speaking to Valentine's up there quietly, and they were getting themselves in a bit of a pickle again. So I convinced, it took a lot of work, a lot of talk for Jim, and we relocated all the cattle from Valentine's back to Magicstone. So there was 39 cows and 3 calves come back down, and Jim sold a few of the little wingers off in Rocky. And to Jim and Valentine family for what they've done, I don't think how many people realise how many cattle they were running. They were up to 140 head there at one stage when I took over. 140 head of cattle. That's most people, that's their living for the year, isn't it? So they dwindled them down, they sold out the properties, and that's why there's been some good sales of late. And I said to Jim, you know, he fed all those cattle last year and he loved them, they were only front paddock all the time apparently. And I just said, you just can't keep doing it, mate, you know, it's not fair. And we were out of cattle, and cattle were too dear to buy back in. So we just said, we made the decision, we bring them back down from there. So it was a great effort on their behalf, and we got them all back down. And I tell you what, I'll send some photos into Steph Magnificent line of Brahman cattle. The bloody things are big. And so what I did, we sold our bulls to Billy. See what your bull come back at, Bill?
Yeah.
We sold the bull and another bull that we bought off us over. They come back at $3,700 a head, which got through the sale. So then I replaced it. I put another black bull out there making 40 cows, so I sold another black bull with Qpa for $3,000 big money. So he's out there now. We'll track test in March and see what we got. That's where we are. But you know, those fellas that helped us out, and that it was pretty hard work to get us through. But anyway, we've got through, and that's where we are. This year we intend to do the boundary fence. We've got to stick the nose and bring it up into rush out and bring cattle back, so we've put the new boundary fence in this year. It'll cost us probably 9 to 10 maybe. So that's where we're at. And all those people that have been running cattle, it's getting barrels are out, knobs are out. They're all sold out of whatever they've got, so all we've got is those 40 odd head of cattle that we're running there now. But you know, we'll build our way back up, but people who taking cattle, Dawson's, you know, you've got to talk, no dry time you had to talk people and take them out, nowhere to go. And everybody's added value to it, so the Bill and their family up there, Billy Carver, then supplies of bull, good bull. But anyway, that's where we're at this stage. Any questions? Beautiful, all good. So anyway, the income won't be there for a few years, but sure the seed's got to turn for it. Is that dry paddock saying now, like all the pine trees on that ridge have nearly died? Let's pull you through past that lady, it's just unbelievable, isn't it? But we only had 6 inches out there all in February, and we haven't had 50 mils since February, so look, it's dry again, but we've got a bit of dry feed there, but you know, I'm sure the goods will go. We've got to get ahead of you soon. But anyway, that's where we're at, and all those people that helped me out through the year, thank you very much. Righto.
Thank you to the Cattle Committee, and while we've sold our herd down due to the dry conditions, be assured that the Qpa has put money aside to be able to restock and to build that business back up again as the season changes, and we'll certainly be supporting the Cattle Committee in their endeavours and whatever they guide us in the way they wish to move that business. So we appreciate them, and we thank you for your work. Next item is the Senior Selectors report, which is fairly short. We didn't do all of this year. But I'd just would like to thank the selectors for their work up until the Colonel Tara, who were rebuilding teams and looking to go to the Nationals and working very well together. We had some great teams selected to go to the Nationals, but it's a pity we couldn't get there. So I'd like to thank those senior selectors for their time and diligence in getting to that point. This next year, there will be a number of representative opportunities, and the senior selectors will let them keep. Potentially, we've got teams to pick the Barrostock, and certainly they'll be making a contribution towards the success of the Queensland Challenge, with some teams who will need to be selected for them. I'll also note that New South Wales have approached Queensland about sending teams to a competition in New South Wales in September in a number of different age groups. It's quite a variety. The Management Committee will test the enthusiasm of the Queensland players to participate at a time which is normally when we finishing playing the year. The date that they propose is 2 weeks after the end of past our state championships. But we will be certainly testing the enthusiasm to see whether players are keen to travel everything to Sillis grounds in New South Wales. Certainly another opportunity to represent. So the selectors will be quite busy in the next 12 months, and I thank them for their work in this year. Thank you. Chairman, junior selectors. Thanks, Chairman, junior selectors.
Thank you, Mike. Welcome everybody. It's good to see the visible attendance down here. Really good. Thank you. Yeah, not much happened in the junior selectors this year. A little bit earlier on, but then a little shut down. But yeah, biggest thing, thanks to Lauren. Lauren didn't nominate again this year because of the vote. Congratulations to Lauren and Chris, and hope everything goes well with the vote. Thanks again to the selectors what they did do, and this year coming now, as Mike has said, we've got the Barris off, we'll have the Qpa Challenge, the junior selectors are involved in that, and then there's a competition on New South Wales, we'll be involved in that too. But yeah, thank you to the other selectors who were there last year and who put their name up again. And that's really it. I look forward to working with you again. Thank you very much. Between Interstate Calendar is getting worked at the moment, and some of the brands are available hopefully before the 2021 season. Transfers are an ongoing issue, but if we stick by the rule book, we can improve in this area. The zone directors are ongoing for 2021. The final zones in Merritt, Outback Zone, Bolton Preston, Central West Zone, Stuart Neal, South East Queensland, Chris Franklin, Capricorn Zone, Greg Wells, Lockout Zone, John Mullen. Thanks once again to these gentlemen and their committees for all the time to take part to make our sport what it is today. From my time as Queensland State Director of Umpire, I'd like to thank Stuart Neal, Gordon Lane, and Paul Erbacker, members of the Umpire Committee, for their assistance and time to make my job a whole lot easier. To all the state, the zone directors of Umpire who have given a lot of time and calendar to our Queensland over the past 5 years, a huge thank you to you people for your tireless efforts in making sure calendars run in the manner we've come to expect. Thanks to Steph
Obviously, we thought we'll try and have some level 1 coaching clinics through the year, which we've expressed some interest out to the whole state, and we've got a good response from the outback. And we had a level 1 coaching clinic out there, thanks to Russo for encouraging people out there to attend this. And thanks to Paul for working out there, hopefully I wasn't too painful to do it. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, there was 10 coaches that are in the process of new level 1 coaches. Yeah, to Jodie Hall for her help with PAA, she's was very good. So thanks, Jodie. And then to the executive who have supported me, and Steph Cochran. I'll give Steph another pat on the back. Like, yeah, as much as I did a lot of the talking and all that sort of stuff, but to rock up and charge on it, Steph's got a kit there, a bag of goodies for you and all the rest of it. You open up, there's just everything starting with this. It's incredible to how she puts it together. So thanks, Steph. And then probably the other one that I wanted to just mention is to all those coaches that behind the scenes that on a weekend that go to a pony club clinic or their local polo or their local districts and all that sort of stuff. And there's so many of them all over the state that give up weekends and get nothing for it and all the rest of it because of their passion. And obviously you can't name them all, but we spoke about this yesterday, and myself and Steph are hoping to put something in place to monitor this and to be able to track it somehow. So rather than, like, I suppose put it easily, you ask these people if they give up a full weekend to go and then to ring them and ask them if they can send us a report on the weekend. Most of them, hey, I'm just giving every weekend, I'm not doing that. So we're hopefully in the process early this year we'll actually just have a tick and flip form that we can actually send to them that'll make it very easy for them so that we can actually recognise that so that they're not actually to write a report or to make it easier for us so that we can track how many people are in there or behind the scenes. Yeah, that's it. Yes, and that's pretty much it. Wish everybody Merry Christmas and all the rest of it, and good luck. Paul, thanks. Yeah, it's been great working with you, mate. Hopefully you'll be back again. And Penny, I'm sure you won't be gone for long when you see we get the new girl and get a bit more money out of her. We get out of you. Yeah, thanks Penny and good luck, and hopefully I can not too long, but I would love to ask you more to you.
Russell's our ideas man on he's always got a new idea. He's one of those people that just keep thinking, so thank you Russell, we appreciate your contributions. State Director of Youth Development, and Matt Hardy is not able to be with us, but he's that dedicated, he's actually phoned in, and so we had Matt on the line, so we're going to see if this works.
Good morning.
Okay, thanks very much for that, Mike. Firstly, I'd like to apologise for being unable to attend the AGM in person. I have listened in and I'd like to submit my youth development report. So with the challenge for 2020 that's proved to be, the QPA were fortunate enough to have the support of the members to continue youth development in the way of a coaching school held on Friday the 25th of September in conjunction with the TNT Carnival. The interest in the coaching weekend was very well received from the Highcross community with 44 participants attending. Each zone was well represented coach for the day. They were then able to put their new skills into practice, participating in a carnival atmosphere while having a coach continue to further into the across for the weekend. This proved extremely beneficial for the juniors, with the consensus from the coaching team was the amount of improvement seen throughout the 3 days, proving the need for further youth development in Queensland. Feedback from the juniors and the parents were very encouraging and positive, with the main response asking when the next coaching event would be. I'd like to thank the Tansy Club, Steph and Mike for the support to run this event in these trying times. Moving into 2021, we plan to continue youth development by the way of further dedicated coaching weekends with focus on improving the grassroots motocross, moving to the barrier-style competition, QPA challenge, and then the fast approaching 2022 nationals. I'd like to move the adoption of my report.
We have a second with the manager's report. That's okay. So, we've moved on a lot, haven't we, now to phone in and Matt's only able to participate and watch this meeting from where he is in Tasmania. So I think we've learned a lot from 2020. State Director of Manager's report. Morel, if you want to report. So not much has happened, but really just what I'd like to think of it. Keep going.
So clearly, as Mike said, not much happened last year or this year. But moving forward, I do believe barrier-stock and other competitions, we'll be looking for some quality managers. Sure, will I move that?
Yeah.
I'll move that manager.
Do we have a second to that, please?
So this will be short, sweet, obviously, much like myself. So well, what a year COVID certainly made all their lives a little bit different in 2020, making it a memorable year, or perhaps a year to forget. Possibly the latter for most people, I dare say. It certainly means that as Director for the Holocaust, there was not much to report to you, apart from making sure that you mark the 24th and 25th of July 2021 in your calendars for the QPA Women's Comp to be held in Gundalee and other our house club. I certainly hope that 2021 is kinder to all of us, not only in terms of COVID, but the weather as well. Most people are still very dry, so much of the wet winter / summer / spring the Bureau promised us. So bring on 2021, we have huge things to look forward to on the field. And also I would encourage any clubs out there who wish to run this event or host this event to put your expressions of interest into the QPA Interstate. That would be great. I move my report to be adopted.
Second to that report. Tom? David? Karen? Thanks, Morella. I think it's important that all of our management committee present to you and you get to understand who they are and what they're doing and how they're contributing to that committee versus the management committee. Everybody has a job, everybody contributes, and it's working very well, so I commend them. Our next person is Ronnie. Now, I think Ronnie a new job this year. He's grading officer. It was his first year, so we were gentle, but he's now our new chairman of Selectors, senior Selectors. So welcome to your Ronnie.
Thanks, Mike. Good morning, everyone. As everyone's mentioned, the 2020 season with COVID has sort of been a bit of a write-off, so grading wasn't a massive deal this year. So I'd just really like to take this opportunity to encourage clubs to go out in the off-season and look at their gradings and get them in, get them adjusted for the 2021 season. I know a number of clubs have already done that, but go out, assess them, get them all in. If you need any assistance or anything, go back to your zone. Grading officers, Bruce, myself, I'm always happy to help out. So thanks everyone. And
much this year. The next thing is, thank you very much, Paul, for your help doing this job. It's been really good, mate. Thank you. Because without Paul's guidance and a lot of things, it's not so easy to do. But otherwise, yeah, all the best for 2019. Merry Christmas to everyone. And we'll catch up with this through the year. I'd like to do my report to the document. Thank you. See you later.
Following on from the fabulous license from Liver and Terry, who retired, Jerry's taken up the mantle to keep our policies and procedures up to speed, and we've been considering a number of them this season. Keeping us on track and making sure that we keep our record up to speed.
Good morning all. Adrian Herod Hobbs, the President Mike, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is with pleasure that I submit my report for 2020. It's been a most abnormal year, and there's never been one like it before. I'll give a brief definition of what the portfolio really entails and a review of what we've actually done during the year. Governance is a bit of a foreign word to most people, but governance is a mechanism required to balance out the power of its members. Its primary duty to enhance prosperity, viability of its organisation. Governance needs to be consensus-oriented, accountable, transparent, responsive, effective and efficient and equitable and inclusive of its rules, policies and principles. So that's what it's all about. The king of all documents, of course, is the Constitution. The PAA is in the final stages of completion of a new Constitution as a result of a transition from the incorporated body under the Incorporations Act of the ACT and to a limited company limited by guarantee under the Commonwealth Act of Australia. So there's a bit of a change, and just generally the conversion has advantages of protection and will assist with the fundraising aspects of sport. There has been a number of face-to-face meetings and a large number of Zoom meetings between the states and the PAA representatives to bring this about in the COVID year. In the state arena, the policies and procedures have continually been subject to review and alignment with that of the PAA. The reciprocal player rule between the states has been withdrawn, and we have reverted back to the previous rule with a few minor tweaks. However, it's subject to further changes as at the moment. The boarding policy has been reviewed and is in the process of upgrade. It is an area that may come to light more as it has in other sports, so obviously we need to have our house in order. Other areas have been aligned with state regulations and policies with regard to child protection, sun safety and members protection policy. I could not let this opportunity go past without a plug for a fully integrated database system that will incorporate all phases of our game, from registrations, nominations to carnivals, payments, rules, scores, a full history of players, carnivals, horses, umpires and documentation of policies, rules and related online reports on which we can make all of our decisions and which many can keep this great game of ours going forward. The QPA executive has used Zoom on a very large number of occasions to communicate quickly and to keep the ball rolling this year. No longer can we use the excuse of travel, accommodation, only the excuse of poor internet. I would like to commend Kent Wells and Paul McGrath for the use of Zoom with umpiring education, and I would encourage everyone to use this technology as its scope is endless. I'd like to thank the Qpa Committee for welcoming me on board and making me feel very welcome, and I'd wish you all a very happy Christmas and look forward to seeing you around at the venues in the new year, and I'd ask that my report be received for adoption. Thank you very much.
Last but not least, our state challenge coordinator officer going to be a big part of 2021, so James is going to share a little bit of that with you and work with Peter on that.
Thanks very much, Mike. Well, 2020 has certainly been interesting for both of us. I'll just read my report out and I'll have a general discussion. Following on from a mainly successful event in 2019, taking on board suggestions and responses to the formal surveys that we sent out and discussions with people within the Cross community, we created a draft set of guidelines that we present to the Cross community. Right now you should have all seen a copy. The challenge will be held now until the 3rd and 4th of July in 2021. The anticipated so it's anticipated that there'll be a youth coaching as well prior to that. So by now everyone should have seen the copy. We're happy to take written ideas on board to improve the concept, and we'll be aiming to make adjustments as needed to make it an actual competition. Please note that the clubs, in all that stuff, the clubs may change in the groups pending the 2021 player numbers. So currently we're just aiming towards the similar things, but no doubt there will be changes to be made along the way. Michael was just saying we'll take questions in the general business section of the meeting. So I move my report for adoption.
That ends our reports, and the next part of our business is to move on to our election of officer there. So we'll take a break there for morning tea. So we'll give you 15 minutes to see Thank you. We'll get the meeting resumed. I've just got a couple of things that I want to do before we move to the election of office bearers. Firstly, we've got a couple of people stepping down at this meeting, and I think we should recognise them. It hasn't been the practice, but we are moving to recognise those as they step down who have given considerable contribution to this organisation. So can I ask Paul McGrath to come forward, please? So this is a Polocross Club supplied by Adina. Paul, well done. Thanks for your time and your effort. Congratulations. We have people that donate a lot of their volunteer time, and none more than Paul, so well done and well deserved. Our second one today is Penny. Penny served 6 years in the executive, 4 years as treasurer. and her contribution in that role, especially as the last 4 years treasurer. That role is you're the 2IC, you're the one that takes all the pressure, and she's certainly been a huge help to those who have been in the role, for Christine, Charlie, myself. The guidance and the support that she gives to the President has been significant. Penny, we thank you. Steph went to a lot of trouble to make sure that Penny didn't know about that.
You did well, but I will find it.
We move on to the election of office bearers. So the first position we have is for the position of patron. We have one nominee, who is Howard Hobbs, proposed by Trish Shepherd, seconded by Paul McGrath. As there are no other nominations, congratulate Howard. Thank you for being our patron. Howard has served us in his position for a considerable period of time now. We thank you for your continued support. He attends meetings, he attends carnivals, he's always there to support us and to support the sport of polocrosse. I'm sure, Howard, with your continued association with being the right-hand man for the current member for Warrego, you can still exert a little influence and help our sport along, and we appreciate the work you do and what you can do for us, but thank you. Our second position we have to appoint is for the position of Treasurer. Now, at the close of nominations, there were no nominations for the position of Treasurer. However, we do have an expression of interest, so can I ask somebody to move that Christy Burns be appointed to the position of Treasurer? So we have John O'Sullivan and a seconder for Morella O'Sullivan. Now we have a signed acceptance form from Christy. She had prior commitments and couldn't be here today, but that actually does comply with our regulations to be a compliant nomination for Treasurer. So I'll call for any other nominations for the position of Treasurer from the floor. If there being no other nominations for Treasurer, I declare Christy Burns to be elected to the Treasurer of the QPA. Now, Christy, for those who don't know, has a background in finance. She's an accountant. She's a management accountant for a firm in Toowoomba, and she'll bring certainly some skills to the table, and we will welcome her to the Management Committee. The Management Committee positions, there are 3 vacancies. We have 3 retiring Management Committee members who are offering themselves for re-election. We have Russell Davidson has been nominated by Kylie Dunstan and John Franklin. We've got Terry Kerr, who's nominated by Kylie Dunstan and Andrew Dunstan, and Gerard O'Sullivan, who's nominated by John Mullins and Kieran Sturgis. There being no other nominations for the Management Committee, I declare those 3 people re-elected for the 2021. I thank them for their continued support. Russell and Terry have been now there for a few years and give us considerable advice, and Gerard in his first year has added a lot of value with his knowledge, and I thank them for their support. The next position is the State Director of Umpiring. We have 1 nomination in Matthew Gleason from Warwick, nominated by Les Fraser, seconded by Stuart Shepherd. There being no other nomination at the close, I declare Matt Gleason to be appointed our State Chief Umpire for 2021. Now, Matt got called out this morning. He was hoping to be here with us today, but his work has prevented that. But I'm sure Paul will be mentoring Matt through what will be a fairly steep learning curve coming into the new Chief Umpire's role, and be gentle with him. But I'm sure those who've had anything to do with Matt over the years will understand that he's a very clear thinker and a very firm mind, and I'm sure he'll do a great job in that role, which is very important to our sport. State Senior Selectors, there are 5 positions available. This is appointed by the Management Committee. I can declare that the Management Committee has met and appointed the following selectors for the 2021. They are Chris Franklin, Paul McGrath, Lisa Johnson, John O'Sullivan and Damien Gould. Now those are the 5 people who were our selectors last year, and there certainly was a feeling that they hadn't had a chance to really make an impact, and it was fair that they should be given another year to put forward their thoughts and make a difference. So congratulations to those 5 people. The state junior selectors, there are 5 positions. It's a appointed position. Appointed for senior junior selectors will be Kylie Dunstan, Sally McGrath, John Mullins, Edwina Keating and Helen Taylor. Helen comes to us from the Far West Zone, and I congratulate her for wanting to be part of this. We haven't had a selector out there from a long time. I think that's really important that part of our state is represented. So I welcome Helen Taylor and congratulate her for becoming part of the selection panel, and she's assured us she'll be travelling throughout Queensland to be across all the juniors that are playing, and to those returning selectors from the junior selector panel, congratulations, well done. Our next item on the agenda is the club affiliation fees for 2022. Penny, do you want to present on that?
During our meeting yesterday, our Management Committee meeting yesterday, we had a good discussion about our club affiliation fees moving forward. These are fees that will be set for the next financial year, so you'll pay these in 12 months' time. There's good in-depth discussion based on the uncertainty around our funding, the future of our funding, and a few models were put forward as a suggestion. It was agreed that we need to go away and work on those models a little bit more before we present them here at a meeting. So it's the Management Committee's recommendation that the club affiliation fees for 2022 be set at $600 per club, which is your current rate that you have been paying. So I'd like to move that, and I'll call for a seconder, please. Clay, thank you. All those in favour, or has anyone got any comment to make? All those in favour? Sweet. Carried. Do you want me to stay, Mark?
Do you do member registrations?
Yep.
Yeah, no, keep going.
All right, the next item on our agenda is our membership registration fees for 2021 season. These tie in with the fees that are provided to us from the PAA to cover our insurance and the membership to the PAA. At the moment, we cannot provide you with a full fee. We are waiting still for the PAA to provide us with some finalised figures, which I'm sure that will come in the next couple of weeks. Looking at our membership base and what we actually try and achieve out of our member registration fees and our budgets and that sort of thing, I am going to ask that the Management Committee be, and that being the Executive Committee, Mike and Christy being the new Treasurer, will be finalising these fees once we have the figures from the PAA. But I would consider that our fees will be staying reasonably similar to what they were last year. Last year, for a full senior player, it was $175, and for an intermediate, it was $100. The juniors receive a reduced fee, and we will have to investigate that moving forward with regards to the funding, etc. But as we are unable to set a full fee here at the moment, I'm asking that the committee give permission, or the meeting give permission for the committee to set that fee when all the information is available. So I'll move that. Can I ask for a seconder for that, please? Thanks, John. All those in favour? Cheers.
Thanks, Penny. The PAA board is very cognizant of the fact that they're trying to keep our fees at a reasonable rate, and we don't expect there to be any dramatic increases. So we're hopeful that the fees will be quite stable on what they were in the last 12 months. Just to touch quickly on the what Penny mentioned about the club affiliation fees, one of the discussion points the management committee is having is with regards to the fairness of being $600 flagfall across the board for all clubs, no matter what the size, which obviously is a disadvantage for those clubs who only have 5 or 6 playing members. So we're looking for alternatives as to how we might make that more equitable, and that's a work in progress for this next 12 months. But we'd like to think that perhaps there may be a fairer way to encourage some of those smaller clubs to keep going that are struggling with only a few members to contribute that amount of money. Next item on our agenda is the appointment of the State Club Championships for 2022, and for that we actually have 2 prior proposals, one from the Bohemia Club and one from the Chinchilla Club. And as is normal procedure, we would ask if any other club wishes to present or put forward an expression of interest. But in the meantime, can I have somebody from the Bohemia Club come forward to present on behalf of the Bohemia? Their expression of interest is for 2022 to be on the 1st, 2nd and 3rd of July. The management committee endorses that application on the basis that they had applied for the carnival in 2020, which we had agreed to, or you had agreed to. It was felt inappropriate that they be given the 2021 because of other issues, and Wandoan had already been allocated that date. But to be fair to Bohemia, we felt that there was a reasonable proposition that they should be given the opportunity to run in 2022. So, Brett, if you'd like to come forward.
Yeah, as a club, Bohemia, we put a lot of work in anticipation of holding the state titles in 2020, and as Mike said, and obviously to everyone, it never happened. And we just think, seeing as our 2022 is somewhat mirroring 2020, we would like the opportunity to hold it in 2022 in July. That's the only thing. So it's up to the state, and we ask you all to consider it. So, thank you.
So our other expression of interest is from the Chinchilla Club. Is there somebody who wishes to speak? John is coming forward on behalf of the Chinchilla Club. Chinchilla have put an expression of interest, and John, I understand that your expression of interest would be for a traditional end of year date. Yep.
Yeah, Chinchilla just put our hand up again, as we do every few years. So yeah, just given the lead up to the Nationals that hopefully we'll get to have in 2024 now instead of 2022. I suppose you could say we found ourselves a bit of a loose end, and would like to just, with the improvements that we're going to do over that time, just put our hand up and say, just to give things a bigger carnival to run prior to our holding the Nationals. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other expressions of interest, we will need to take a vote. Now, I need 2 scrutineers, so can I call for volunteers? Susie, I just volunteered you. Can I have another volunteer who is not a delegate, not a voting delegate? Who we got? Charlie Brook is not a delegate. 2 will be fine. Yes, thank you, Charlie. Can we have a motion to appoint Charlie and Susie as our scrutineers for this vote? Those in favour? Thank you. Now we should have 31 votes in the room. So for noting, 31 votes is your total. So Charlie and Susie. Okay, last call for votes. Slow riders. Jamie, are you ready? While the scrutineers are counting these votes, we'll move on to the next item, which is an opportunity for you to ask questions and to interact a little bit more about the state challenge. So Jamie's here to perhaps run through a few of the proposals. I would emphasise that what we've put forward before you is a draft. We're looking for feedback, and obviously the details will be finalised in the new year. But we would like some interaction. So now's your opportunity.
Thanks very much, Mike. I'll move all this a bit closer, a bit short. Everybody's seen a copy of the guidelines that's been emailed around, I guess. I just basically reiterate, Mike, it's a draft in its current form, and we are seeking feedback. So, and we're happy to take it. It would be much better if it was written for us, so we can get the gist of exactly what you're trying to say. But yeah, fire away.
I just at the last state challenge, we lost a lot of players because we never had that next level of competition for them to fall into, so we were selecting teams with 6s and 7s playing with 3s and 4s, and they just never turned up. They pulled out of teams. So I think a mixed competition would add to the competitiveness of the whole.
So you take your first team, and then your mixed team is basically your second, and then your second team's your C grade team or something. Yeah. We're open to that, Mike.
We'll take it on board.
Yeah. Yep. It really depends on where the numbers fall. Yeah.
Are we not missing an opportunity to be a bit more adventurous with this too? As I was talking earlier, the zones are pretty much dead as far as the competition goes. They play more administrative role in the sport. Can we not just scrap the zones and maybe have, we select all our 9s, they go different ways, 8s, this is in our gradings, pick our teams from them, select six teams to be in each competition. They're blue, red, green, whatever else, just scrap the zones completely. Because the other issue we have, we send an email through to the state, is jerseys. Who pays for the jerseys? Our zone needs new jerseys. It's unfair to ask players in a zone that aren't playing in the zone to contribute for the jerseys for that zone. I think the state should maybe manage all that side of it as well.
Any other comments along that line?
So feedback on that, and obviously you'll let us discuss, and obviously you'll be getting a reply on that. Obviously the zones are a way of trying to pull together disparate groups and to try and give some sort of structure. And obviously, historically, the zones had some uniforms, and it was a way we felt we could do it fairly efficiently. We do understand that there will be players who will be put in particular groups that may not play in that zone, and you'll have other players from outside your zone playing your zone colour shirts. But we felt the crossover effectively was, net effect was that your zone would contribute an amount, and each zone would contribute an amount, and the benefit to the overall organisation was a net plus. I suppose that for the first state challenge, it was considered just a way because it was there, and it was an easy way of getting across the line without having to reinvent too much. Any of those ideas can be put forward, and I suggest that what you're suggesting, where we do what we did with the Masters, and I think the Intermediates, the last one where the state selectors picked 5 even teams in certain grades, are you suggesting that we go there?
That's it, basically. Yeah. Just to get the teams more even, I suppose, and we don't have to worry about this 4 players from one club and 2 players from the other club. Everyone's just split down the lines, and the competition is top-level competition.
So that would be an alternate model, have put the teams together of having the state selectors.
Instead of selecting from clubs.
Yeah, I think we
And it takes a club out of it. It takes the, as far as selectors, it takes, there's no conflict of interest or whatever, the clubs are out.
we basically left it this time the same, so that some of the feedback we had, that people were confused about which teams are in and which zone, and there were so many changes happening right up until the morning of actual play, that we felt it for this one to try and stay in the club, so that it's easier if to change horses around and change teams around. But that model has been that definitely has been talked at in our room. And the jerseys and ongoing, we have had discussions about different models for running the event, for running a challenge type event, along like some of those. One of the models was the model that you've talked about, but this is basically where we were just going this time to try and bed it down to continue on from where we were, tidy things up a bit more, and then like the next model might be the better improvement again, because there were areas where we weren't tight enough on in the last one, so we just thought we'd try and tighten those things up. Better communication of the teams, and Friday night there's an event planned for everybody to get together with jersey presentations to make that like more inclusive. Yes, Les?
James, from a board point of view, what is our end result out of this competition? Are we looking to improve polo cross? Are we looking to improve relationships? Or are we looking to improve players along the way? That's my first question to you, is what is our end result? What do we want to be our end result? Moving on from there, in our first paragraph of those conditions, where a maximum 4 players per club per side, unless deemed unsuitable by the selectors. So we put in a rule that says we've got 4 players per club. Then the next thing we put in is saying unless that is deemed suitable by the selectors. So we put another paragraph in that lets them out of the square if they want to get out of the square. That's one thing I would say. Further down, where teams will be selected based upon ability, not necessarily combining lower grade players with high grade players. Well, I fail to understand that, but it's there, and I just couldn't get my head around how it was. And going on to the back, where division eligibility, I think that once again, we're locking our players, depending on what your end result wants to be out of this. We're locking some very good under 21 players locked in to where they are,
when we possibly need some of them to come out, right? So we've got a provision there if you're out of that division next year, but maybe they might be out of that division next year or not. You know, I'll go back to my original question to you, is what is our end result out of this competition, please? That's what I'd like to know.
Les, referring to the last one about the under-21s, down the bottom we have it like there is a deviation allowed from the policy. So if you've got a superior under-21 player that you think should be in your open team, it can just be run past the QPA.
So basically we're not locked into playing our players in their age divisions if we don't think we want.
That's basically right, Mike, isn't it?
Look,
It is a draft.
I'll try and answer your questions, Les. The intent is to be able to see the best of our Queensland players in a competition playing against their peers so that the selectors can see them, and that operates right across the grades. And that was the original concept of the zone competition, was to group clubs together so that those players who might be one good player in a club could be seen with some better players to their best opportunity to be selected. And that certainly is one of the intentions when this was reinvented, that we felt that the zones weren't providing that opportunity anymore, and that this may provide that opportunity for those players who might only have 2 or 3 in their club to be playing at that high level against the best of the best. So that was certainly the first intent. Our intent about insisting that players play within their grade is to ensure that their peers are seen playing against their peers. So if you're being under selection, we found that when we allowed it to vary at Tansy, you had some that did play in their grade and some that didn't. It obviously causes a little discontent. We want to actually see those next 4 and 5 against those top 2 and 3 to be able to say how far away they are and do they really match, because until you actually see them playing against the other, it's really hard for those selectors to actually compare them. If they're only playing, if that 5 and 6 is only playing against 3 and 4, it's not as big a difference as if they're playing against 1 and 2. And so that was the intent of trying to make them play within their grades. Now, we have allowed that if you're moving out of that grade and you want to be seen to be selected in the next grade, well, obviously that's sensible. So somebody that's moving into Masters, somebody that's moving out of juniors into intermediates or out of intermediates into open at the next selection opportunity, we want to see them in the grade that they're likely to be selected in. So that's what we've done that. Now, the other key point there is about four per from one club. This is about mixing it up a little bit and seeing players play with other people. We don't want a club team there. That's not really the point of it. So that's to discourage it. But we do acknowledge that there may be a situation where, depending on who you get in the nominations, that may be all you have. But we want you to ask permission before we allow you to do it, rather than being as of right that you can put a club side in. So we're not saying you can't do it, but it's not the intent and it's not what we want you to do. And so you've got to ask permission if you want to do that. And if you can show that that's the only viable alternative, we'll give you permission to do it.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
And that, Les, that also covers that other point by not having the lower grade players with the higher.
Thank you, Joe.
So if you need some...
James, with
yes.
With the age, just going back to the age real quick, I think it's fine to say it allows those next 4 to get tested, but wouldn't that... Oh, I don't need that. On the same side of that coin, you've got those 2 players that you were talking about. You know, does that not, if they were going up into the men's, then or women's, that would allow them to be seen in that level where maybe they want to play. You know, that allows them to get tested in that next step as well. So
yeah, you can apply to have that.
Yeah.
You can apply.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like we want to have the best competition possible.
Yeah.
And the zones obviously hadn't been working, and we're trying to do something different. And we're welcome to we do welcome feedback. So, yeah, please write it down and put it to us. Yes, Bill?
James, I think you've done a very good job with something that was and I know Christine did a lot of work with this. I thought the competition at Tansy was absolutely fantastic. I don't think anybody who went there, we don't care what colour jersey you were wearing or whatever else, the competition was really exciting. The women's, the men's, I don't think I've seen polo cross that good. We asked what it's for. The reason is we want to see the best polo cross we can. This is an opportunity to see it. The zones, when I first started playing, zone polo cross was winding down, and the zones got to the case where we had, I don't know how many zones I played, that I just at the last minute put my horse on the truck and went and played, and just to make up a zone men's team. You know, I would have, when I was playing better polo cross, this would have been really exciting as far as I was concerned. I reckon this would have been great. The outcome out of it is to see the good players that are coming on, our next lot of players that we need to select in representative polo cross. The reason I feel that we shouldn't have our state selectors doing picking the teams, picking all the teams across the board is, one is you're going to not have all the time have these state selectors, so it gives some guys an opportunity to step up and be a selector. So we're not only doing this for players, we're also giving our next lot of selectors an opportunity to put their hand forward and become a selector. They might go from this experience and go, you know, I did a really good job at this, I'm going to put my hand up to be a state selector. I haven't been a state selector and zone selectors and everything else. You've got to start somewhere. You don't just become a state selector. And we tend to put it on our older, on Kent Wells, Paul McGrath and them that have been there and done it. I think that's fine and they're great selectors, but it's an opportunity for other selectors to do it. It also is an opportunity for clubs. We're with the Outback Zone. It's a great opportunity for some of them to come in and play. Now, Chris Franklin, I've never seen him at Charleville or Qpa. And I'm not saying he wouldn't do a good job at selecting somebody from out there, but if he hasn't seen them, he can't pick them. And if he's a state selector, out there, you know, and we're asking him, we also asked our state selectors to do a lot. It's getting more and more each year. Haven't been a state selector, you're spending a lot of time. This is just something else they've got to do. And I think there needs to be, put it back on us members. And the jersey issue, I think, it's a big issue. I think as this goes along, remember, we're trying to change something here to get something to work. So we're using these jerseys at the moment. Now, if we don't use these jerseys until they're ratty and worn out, they're only going to get thrown out anyhow. So we may as well use them and get the best out of them, that we've already paid money for them, use them up now. And as this competition goes along, I think you'll find you'll probably be able to say, well, that, you know, it mightn't be Leichhardt or Outback, it might be the Sharps Engineering sponsored area, and you'll get some company will come in and put their, you know, if we do it right, especially with Joe televising it and everything else, you'll get a following. This polo cross has got the opportunity to be really big and really strong. I think this is a big opportunity for Queensland. I thought the one at Tansy, especially Christine, put a lot of work into it, and I really think it was absolutely fantastic. I went there wondering how it was going to be, left there going, can we have it next weekend? Thank you.
Carol?
Will the state selectors be at the QPA challenge? All the
Yes.
state selectors will be there?
Yes.
Compulsory.
Yep. And also, just wonder what the reason is not to have a 7-man team and an 8-man mixed, because our national selectors really need the practice to learn, the coaches I mean, to learn how to put teams on in a 7 and 8-man team. Because it's a real skill. It's not just...
The main reason was so we could get more teams. That was the initial concept, initially, Christine, wasn't it?
Just for the first off, we didn't know whether we get 50 players or
Yeah, I realise that.
So we said, let's just make it basic 6-player team.
Yep.
But originally, when it was thought about by Charlie and the other committee, it was to be the 7 and 8. So
yeah, I just, I think that the coaches really need practice at that. You would know as being a coach how hard it is to do a 7 and 8-man team. It's not like a 6-man. It's totally different.
Yep, that's right. Yes, Ken.
If you're going to go to a 7 and 8 man team, we need to bring a rule in that everyone must play 2 chukkers, just so that to utilise for this sort of thing where you want to give everybody exposure, you make sure that the coaches use the whole team. So they can't just, oh, this fella's a bit weak this game, we're not going to use him, we want to win. No, you've got to use your players to the best of your ability.
Yeah, Kent, that's probably really another reason why we went with the 6-person thing, was because we actually had people grouped together that probably didn't know each other and coached.
Our coaches don't get enough practice.
No, that's right.
Coaching 6 and 7 man teams. We do it once a year now, or once every 2 years now, all the opportunity they get. And having coached a lot of that sort of polocross, it's a skill.
Yeah, it is a skill.
And we're dumping people into jobs. And I know, I went to Musselbrook and we lost, you were at it.
Yeah.
We lost because I made a poor decision on before chucker. You know, I spelled the wrong player and we lost the game. We let New South Wales back into our first game. It changed the whole series. We had them on toast and went changed the whole series because I made a poor decision. You know, and that's experience. You know, until you do it a few times, you don't get that opportunity. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to look at who you're actually playing for the whole competition. And then you can, if you've got weaker players, play them in that competition where you think they're still getting a good run, but you're saving your better players. And a lot of people put all their good players in all the time, and then by the time they get to the final, the horses are had it, and they don't have it. Yeah, and they haven't had the practice. Yeah.
New South Wales are very good at it too, and you should be practicing instead of.
I think if you ran down that path, it's a great idea. You'd have to run with QPA appointed coaches then instead of because Jane Blake and
So it'd have to be appointed coaches that you think you're going to coach at national for the next time. So that's fair practice. Yeah, that's a good idea.
The other thing is also with your coaches, it's really hard for a coach to play in a top team and then be good enough to put their time into that team and also coach another team. I don't think they're capable. It's a real skill too, to put that dedication into that team you're coaching and still be able to put your time into the team you're playing. I don't think, at national level, I don't think people can do it, to be honest.
At a nationals?
Yeah. Sorry?
At a nationals, you mean?
At a nationals, yeah.
Yeah. The biggest issue we have is attracting the talent at a nationals and the travel. Yeah.
Team is going to play, and you might be playing in a game at the same time. That's what I mean. It's impossible to do.
So at the nationals, it's not such a big deal because we very rarely have teams that clash. We occasionally do, but it's not doesn't happen so often. So it's normally you're more able to allocate that. One of the problems about having quality coaches appointed by the QPA at something like the Challenge is that we simply don't have that. We simply don't have that.
Childproof.
Yeah, we simply don't have that depth. We want those top players to be playing, and they'll want to be playing. So all those good players are committed, and because you're playing under a very much tighter time frame, there is likely to be clashes. So it's going to make it so much more difficult. One of the things about the 6-player teams is that people are travelling to this and they're wanting to get value for money, and we want them to have a good experience there, and we want them going home. So I only got 3 chuckers. That's we want to avoid that. We want people to go there to get value and to play at a high level and to be seen. And I suppose that's why we came back to those 6-player teams to ensure that if somebody goes to the effort of travelling from in the outback to Alton Downs, that it's worth their while putting these on the truck.
Yeah, I can understand that. I just think our coaches need more practice, that's all.
Yeah, that was always in our mind right from the start, when we started the Challenge, the fact that we weren't giving those coaches that opportunity. But our thought process was that we had a greater weighting on our players getting plenty of game time. Anything else? Thank you very much. Feel free to contact the QPA, send us an email. That would be fantastic. Greatly appreciated.
Thanks, Jamie. Obviously, there's been good discussion there. It's a difficult topic. There's no right answer. We're trying to do what we can to make this the best event we can possible, and can I assure you that most of the arguments that have been put from this room this morning have already been discussed around the management committee table, and we tended to reach a position, but we're still keen to hear that feedback and to hear what people are thinking. If we don't know what you're thinking, we can't make it better. So thank you for your contributions today. Nearly to the end of the meeting, Susie. Susie has come to do that. I've just been reminded we actually got to step back one, so you get a 30-second reprieve. The result of the ballot for the state championships in 2022 is that Bohemia will be the holders of the championships. Can I have a motion that those ballot papers be destroyed, please? Clay? Joe Losberg? All in favour? Carried. Thank you. So, Susie, you're on. So, thank you, Susie, for making the effort to come to our meeting. We appreciate it. We appreciate the PAA's board's interest in what happens here in Queensland, and thank you for making the effort to come.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. I hopped on a plane yesterday for the first time since March, which is very unusual for me given what travel I generally do, particularly for work. I think it's quite clear that the consensus for 2020 is that it's been a tumultuous year. It started off with everyone geared up for the 2020 Nationals at Ballarat in late April. That situation changed very quickly, with decisions needing to be made around the safety of our players and our community as the potential impact of COVID started to emerge. As the PAA, we were faced with considerations of just being days out with our WA players about to travel cross-country, and considerations such as whether we had people potentially travelling across the country and what happened if everyone got locked down with and not being able to go anywhere, and how do we get food and how do we look after those players in that situation. Those decisions were taken out of our hand in any event between decisions of our Prime Minister and obviously each of the state associations and all the public health orders that came in, and unfortunately the Nationals in 2020 didn't get to be. So as the PAA, our focus then turned to safety and sustainability of our sport as we face these unprecedented circumstances and look to consider what the 2020 season might hold. It was pleasing to see that Queensland held several events throughout the year and made the most of the opportunities that there were, including the Queensland Youth Development, the Level 1 coaching, and also again the opportunity for online formatting to get together and continue things like important discussions on things like coaching and umpiring. As we look ahead to 2021, we're very keen to support all of our players at all levels and focus on initiatives including Blue Bandage. We still move forward with a high degree of uncertainty. I think someone said to me recently they were planning to go to Adelaide for Christmas from Queensland, and out of anyone across Australia, they didn't feel that they would be the family to be locked down and not able to travel there. So, of course, even international, we don't see that changing any time in the near future, perhaps with the exception of New Zealand. But again, our focus is how do we get our players back out onto the field and rebuild our sport. For the PAA, the immediate focus, as Jared touched on, is the move to a company limited by guarantee. This is something that we must do as part of our funding for Sports Australia. In order to do that, the key step to enable that change to occur is to adopt a new constitution. So we have had several meetings, including on Zoom, and we're very close to finalising that and reaching a resolution, with the one key outstanding issue being about the voting rights of the states. Just this past week, we had a very constructive discussion amongst all of the councillors, and I'm hoping we're close to reaching a resolution, although it's not exactly clear what that looks like at this point in time. So I'm very pleased to see that and the contribution, and hopefully we can get there shortly and move across and transition. At a high level, with the exception of depending on where we land at voting rights, most of the structure will remain the same. There'll be a few other key changes, such as a company secretary, which is required as part of the Corporations Act, and a few other checks and balances, which we all see as advantages to our sport. Lastly, I'd just like to mention the Nationals. Thank you to Chinchilla for their understanding with the shifting of dates, with the desire to give Ballarat the opportunity to run in 2022. We don't yet have those final dates, but essentially we see it falling within a similar time period as you've got up on the board, but we do hope to have a final date set shortly. Thank you for having me here in Queensland. I do have family from Queensland originally, and I do enjoy coming up here, so thank you very much and Merry Christmas.
So that concludes the agenda as we have it. Is there anything else that you wish to raise from the floor in general business? Is anything anybody wants to contribute? Paul?
Last Friday we had a Zoom meeting with all the national directors of Umpire, which make up the NUC committee, along with Kent and Sandra Weston. Just a few things that come out of that, and I think the club should know about. Obviously the mutual membership thing is back on the table that Susie spoke about as well. Hopefully we'll get some rules out around that before we kick into gear next year. Every state has been asked to purchase headsets or communicators. You might have seen they were used at the World Cup for referees to talk to umpires on the field, and it worked very well. I think we need to use them more for provisional umpires and senior umpires to communicate while they're on the field and with a referee, and probably down the track hopefully we'll get each zone to purchase a set of them as well. I think they cost $600 for the set, so it's not a huge outlay, and they are a good training tool. The makeup of teams was a bit of a talking point. So probably the best way to explain this, if three clubs nominate for a carnival and they're short a player, and there's three players come to a carnival from another club, so say Wandone, Chinchilla and Tambo nominate 5 players, and Tansy nominates, and they've got 3 players left over. Those players have to go into nominated pool teams before we make up a team around the 3 Tansy players. I think that's the best way to explain it. So does everybody understand what I mean there? So our nominated club teams are to be filled before we make up a team out of pool players. We've been asked probably to have more Zoom meetings, and hopefully I'll talk to Matt about this, and there'll be more Zoom meetings with the zone directors of umpiring as often as we can. The Survey Monkey was out. Went out twice, once in November and once in December. So hopefully everybody got that. It was just nothing important. Well, I suppose it is important, but it's just to keep people thinking about the game and about the rules and keep everybody a bit interested. Carnivals outside the rule book was such as the Qpa Challenge. I think Calliope has a chucker carnival of a night chucker carnival. These events have to be go through the Qpa to say that they can go on. Don't just put them on. They have to go through the Qpa. The Qpa then sends them onto the NUC, so you can have them. It's not very often they stop from being happening, but we do need to know that they are happening. Next year there's the umpire exchange. Queensland's to host 2 umpires, one from the Northern Territory and one from New South Wales. And we'll be looking for umpires from Queensland to go to Western Australia and New South Wales. And that's about all I've got to say. Thank you very much.
Question, Paul?
Yep.
As somebody who does draws occasionally, what happens when you get, as normal in your teams that aren't full, you have lower graded, they're normally your lower graded teams.
Yep.
But you've got 3 players that turn up that are on 8. They happen to be travelling around there. Is it fair to put them in a team where they actually outrank the rest of the team?
No, but there are, if that has to happen, there are circumstances. But ask your zone director of umpire or your state director of umpiring. We need permission to do it. Yeah, we don't just want to turn up at a carnival on a Saturday morning. We know, for want of a better word, there's a stacked team there.
So that responsibility goes back to the umpire in charge of that carnival. Is that the person you should do?
He has to approve any made-up teams. Yes. Yep.
Okay, I think that's clarified.
Yep. Thank you.
So that concludes the business for our meeting. Can I encourage you to visit the 2022 Carnival Date Board over here and to put your club's expression of interest forward. We need to start populating that. Sorry, question, Liz?
Mr Chairman, are you still on general business?
I am, yes.
Recently there was a newsletter distributed by the New South Association, and I just wanted to make a comment. I don't want to discuss the newsletter. All I want to say is that yes, we were approached to change the date of the barrow stop. We didn't because, once again, Queensland are organised. They had their 2021 calendar date in place, and they wanted us to move the barrow stock to our August carnival. Well, firstly, I don't think that was fair to Queensland. We were 12 months set in advance. And secondly, I didn't think that was fair to Wandoan because they were running the club championships, and I really couldn't see that we could run the barrow stock a fortnight before them and still be fair to Wandoan. So all my comment is that the reason we didn't change the date was simply because I don't think it suited Queensland. And at the end of the day, we need to suit Queensland. So thank you, Mr Chairman.
Thank you. I'll take that as a comment unless anybody wants to further that. Thank you, Les. I think it's been a difficult year addressing how we approach 2021, and there's been a lot of different views in it, and obviously the different states have different approaches to how they're approaching 2021. But Queensland has had its carnival date set for some time now, and I think we're happy to proceed that way. But I would encourage you to put forward your 2022 dates. That's always been the way that we start at this meeting and start planning for 2022, so that that can be resolved during the year, and any clashes can be ironed out. So tonight we have our cocktail function. So I'd like to thank the Youth Committee, to Tom and his people that have helped with that, the rest of the Youth Committee, and I know Russell's been helping there, so I'd thank them for the work they've done in pulling together the function tonight, and I hope to see a lot of you there. I'm sure we'll have a great time, good opportunity to continue to catch up and talk polocrosse or whatever else you want to talk about, perhaps the rain that's coming next week. But thank you. We'll see you in 2021, and thank you for your attendance today, and I'll close the meeting.
Thanks very much for that. Much appreciated.
It's just been pointed out to me, a failing is we didn't set a date and a venue for the next meeting. Can I have a motion for when our next meeting should be? So we have a motion from Chinchilla Club on John Mullins that it be on the second Saturday of December at the Burke and Wills Hotel in Toowoomba. Clay seconded that. Is everybody comfortable with that? Show of hands. Done. Thank you.